This is about a topic that is somewhat recurring here at the firm. It goes like this. We have the Brazil Digital Nomad Visa / Residency. That's a very interesting track for those of you who want to test the waters. It is typically for 1 year, and the original legislation said for 1 year, renewable for a second year. So originally, this was intended for 2 years. I think ChatGPT still says 2 years. Okay, so very interesting. Like there is a bunch of things whenever you check in AI that does not meet reality. Okay, so yes, AI is gonna give you like the correct answer, I would say, to the majority of questions, but it's not gonna give you the correct answer to everything. And therefore, if you are relying on AI, you may very well get like incomplete or incorrect information, leading you to take a path that is not gonna be real. And this is one of those that I've been seeing more than once. Nowadays, the digital nomad, there is no regulation addressing what I say, and that's probably why ChatGPT can get this one right. But we have many clients who have been renewing for multiple times, 1 time, 2 times, and we have clients who are renewing their digital nomads for a 3rd time. Okay, so definitely, as of today, the digital nomad can be renewed on a daily basis. Now, if you're gonna ask me how this is gonna be 5 years from now, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, I don't know. Nobody can foretell how immigration is gonna be working in a few years from now. So what I can tell you is, as of today, the Brazil Digital Nomad Visa / Residency, right? More specifically about the residency, because you could get a visa abroad, or you could even get a residency being in Brazil. And after that, you're going to be renewing the residency. You're not going to be renewing the visa, because you're not going to go back to your country of origin. You can apply for a renewal while physically in Brazil. So again, we have clients who have renewed for 3 times successfully. All right, so that's the first important piece of information for you. The second one is about the business owner track. Okay, the business owner track is a recurring topic we have in our consultations. And typically the person is going to say, well, I have a business, and can I apply for the digital nomad visa or not, right? And what I can tell you is that the Brazil digital nomad visa or residency, yes, it can accommodate a business owner as long as you have a flexible understanding of things. Because sometimes we see people who want to have everything inside a box, and this doesn't typically work well for the digital nomads. What do I mean by that? I mean that the Brazilian federal police, which is the Brazilian immigration, whenever they are reviewing digital nomad applications in Brazil, right? And then we're going to talk about the distinction between applying in Brazil to applying abroad. Okay, very different, all right? But when you are applying in Brazil, the review of your application is going to be more consistent. Why? Because it's going to be a single department of analysts who are going to be operating under a single supervisor of this specific type of residency in Brazil. And therefore, the results and the review, they are going to be more consistent. Are they going to be exactly the same? No, they will not, because you have different people with different heads evaluating the applications, okay? But this said, it is way more consistent than when you apply abroad. When you apply abroad, the standards, they are all over the place. Consulates are very clear and specific that they have a discretion to interpret the requirements, and even more than that, they have a discretion to adapt the requirements to the specifics of the country in which they are sitting. And therefore, when we get to visa, all over the place. So for the purpose of my explanation, we're going to be talking here about the Digital Nomad application in Brazil, which is called Residency, not a visa. Visas are applied abroad through a Brazilian consulate or embassy. When you apply in Brazil, we are always talking about residency. There are no visas typically issued in Brazil. So going back to the track of digital nomad business owner, I remember there was back in 2023, so a long time ago, we had like the original checklist for the application, and the checklist basically said, listen, you have those requirements about income, which I think they're easier to understand, and they have basically a requirement for a letter of the employing company to be provided on the company's letterhead, signed by the responsible party for that company, attesting that the applicant was able and working remotely. So the person should be able and should be working remotely as well, right? Or able and allowed, authorized by the company to work remotely. There are very specific requirements for this letter, and that's something we make available as a template for those who are hiring our service, right? So we don't provide this template in our consultations, but for those who hire our service, we then provide this template so the person can give it to their employer, right? And so they don't need to guess what should be in such letter. Now, going back to the business owner, so I remember back in 2023, there was an attorney who was our client. So he was an attorney in the US, and we said, listen, based on our understanding of the Brazilian immigration, the closer you get to the checklist they have, the easier it is going to be your approval. And therefore, even though like this attorney was the owner of the firm, we said, listen, we really advise you to basically just get like, a letter from your firm on your letterhead saying that your position is general manager, right? That's what you do. You are a general manager, like you make such amount of money, and this is going to be signed by the head of, human resources at your firm. And then, we provide that. We're going to provide the other document on the financials, and you go. And guess what? He said, I'm not going to do it. I am not an employee. I am a business owner, and that's how you're going to apply on my behalf, right? And back then, it was like the Digital Nomad was approved back in 2022. So that was in 2023, like 1 year, like it was basically just, ramping up. And we said, all right, we understand, we get it. Like your business owner, you don't want to show on the letter as an employee. And guess what? Like we filed this application. It was with a consulate, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like it was a long time ago. And they said, no, we don't recognize any of this paperwork, right? Like he was providing articles of incorporation. He was providing operating agreement. He was providing for the firm was in the United States, right? So the EIN is the federal tax ID for the entity. So there was a bunch of things. And the consulate basically said, listen, those things, they mean zero to us. They are meaningless to us. What I need from you is a letter, from the employer. And notice that their language, even though we said very specifically that the client was the business owner, they were still going back to the checklist. So they said, we need a letter from the employer. The letter needs to meet the requirements, and it must be signed by the employer, right? So after, like this botched application, we never again tried to apply for anything, either at the consulate level or at the Brazilian immigration level, right? Like consulate is when you're applying abroad, and Brazilian Federal Police is when you're applying like in the country. Like there is a system that you're going to use for the application. And whenever we are applying, we're gonna tell the business owner, congratulations, you are a business owner, but we're not gonna deal with your business here. We don't wanna see your articles of incorporation. We don't wanna see your operating agreement. We don't wanna see your, company tax. We don't wanna see the bank statements for your business. That's not what we are showing to immigration. For the immigration, you are applying as an individual and you are applying as an employee. That's the Brazilian mindset. And don't try to educate immigration. It doesn't work, right? I think common sense is going to tell you it doesn't work to try to educate immigration officers. You don't educate the immigration officers. You basically give what they are asking, okay? So since then, our track or our recommendation is going to be, listen, if you are the owner of the company, you're going to get like a letterhead from your own company, okay? It's going to be on your letterhead. You're going to have the description of whatever you can do remotely, and you can write this letter because guess what? You are the business owner, so it's not fake. You're not deceiving anyone. You're just presenting your relationship in a way that the Brazilian immigration is going to be able to match to their checklist, okay? I think that's the bottom line. Many people imagine like the immigration officer, all right, like I'm going to explain to this guy how this thing works, and they're going to understand it. They're going to, feel pretty good about my application. That's not how it works. That is actually more like how Portuguese immigration works. For Portuguese immigration, yes, the immigration officers, particularly at the consulate level, they have a lot of discretion, and they are prone, in our experience, to actually try to understand that specific case in front of them, not the Brazilian one. The Brazilian one is pretty attached to checklists that they have internally, okay? And therefore, for the business owner, again, going back, to the point here, you're gonna present yourself. That's in our experience, right? Like I'm not saying like how the immigration is telling you to do. I'm saying how we advise our clients. You're going to present yourself as an employee of the company. It does not matter if you are the owner. You're going to present yourself like, and you don't need to say, well, John is an employee. Like you just need to say, listen, John works for company ABC. He makes this amount of money. The activities that he is able to perform remotely are I don't know, like, create websites, provide the SEO requirements, publish the website, provide adjustments over time, check on Google Search Console to address like statistics over on a monthly basis and interact with the client as needed, right? And then this letter needs to be signed. Now another point of attention, it needs to be signed by someone else, right? And this is a challenge to some people who are there, they just have like a business with themselves, okay? And now if you ask me what to do, I'm gonna answer to you, I don't know, okay? Because if you sign for your own company, whenever the immigration officer looks at it, they get confused, right? This is a letter supposed to confirm that you are working remotely, and now you are signing on your behalf. It doesn't work, okay? So whenever people have this situation, I say, listen, you need to make a decision, and this decision is going to be on you. And what many people are going to do, and this is not what I'm recommending, I'm just sharing what we see being done, is like, even if it is a one-person company, they are going to talk, sometimes they have an accountant who works closely with them, or they have a partner who's going to sign on behalf of the entity. So as simple as that. Letter of, like remote work with the requirements that we have in our template, right? And then you need to hire our service to have those exact terms, because I don't even know all of them from the top of my head. It needs to be signed by someone else. As simple as that, all right? So again, forget about company paperwork, forget about articles of incorporation, forget about operating agreement. Forget about anything about the company. They're just asking for a letter on the company's letterhead confirming that yes, you work for that company on a remote basis. Okay. And now maybe just something else, because we spoke so much about this route on the financials. Let me be very clear. They couldn't care less about the financials for the entity. You are applying as a person. You're not applying as a company. The financials should show on your bank statement, okay? Never on the company's bank statement, because you are an individual. You're not a company applying for the digital nomad, all right? So I hope this is helpful, because this is a somewhat repetitive topic that we have in our consultations. I'm going to ask our team later on to probably just publish this piece for business owners. I'm not sharing everything, otherwise this is going to become just like Digital Nomad. But for people who are interested in this track and who are business owners, schedule a consultation with us. I think for this one, instead of picking the cheapest one, right, like the $75 one, you could, choose the ones that are higher end, which are typically with, senior attorneys here at the firm, and I am one of them, okay? And then I think you're gonna have, better feedback. Now, if you pick the cheapest one, you're gonna talk like with our, standard attorney. They are prepared to talk about those things in general, but they don't have as much knowledge as about companies, about how to present paperwork as a senior attorney would have, right? So be reasonable and pick the right route. But yes, the digital nomad, as long as you present this application as an individual and you don't get caught up in the whole business ownership thing, yes, it works very well for business owners, and we don't have 110. We have dozens and dozens, if not hundreds. All right. So I hope that was helpful. Let's get back to another topic.